Good morning, this is Graham Gordon Thomas, and I am the rational environmentalist. I'm doing this, and whether anyone watches them, that's a matter of chance, but it's to try to explain how, so far, when it comes to environmentalism and climates, there's only been an irrational attitude and irrational actions taken by politicians and pushed by activists that actually make no sense, and since as many of the activists are young people, will actually bring greater harm to themselves from an economic point of view in the future. They're actually damaging their own economy and protesting against people working, which doesn't make sense at all. First time in history politicians have jeered up young people, and universities and all these other authorities have jeered up young people to protest against people working in everyday industries which run society, like coal. Now coal, whether you have a view on this or not, well, what is that? I can't change that point of view. I know an awful lot about coal. I was brought up amongst it. But it's not coal itself that it should be the discussion. It never should have been the discussion. The discussion should have always been focusing on energy and economics. It's simple. The government has been subsidising private companies to put up wind generators and solar panels and whatever, even though, and spent billions of dollars on this, wasted billions of dollars of public taxpayer money and borrowed money on this process that provides no reliable power or baseload power whatsoever. And it takes an awful, but take trillions of dollars to create the systems that the activists and the climate irrationalists want or demand. Not only are there many better technologies out there than solar and wind, and but the government won't allow the mass release of them or encourage the mass release of them because they've got all this finance into lithium and all that. So once the big financial dealers direct their finance into this or that, maybe to boost Bolivia's economy, then they will hold back real advances in technology which would reduce emissions, if that's what your aim is, and also bring down, be a lot cheaper than the way they're doing it. But they think the economy is going to be wrecked by massive disruption if they do that, and they want to control the flow of currency. That's all this climate change has been about so far. The point is this though: if it's okay for governments to subsidise private corporations, in Australia for example, many of them are from overseas or foreign companies, so therefore the taxpayer and the government's borrowing money, taxpayers are paying taxes and paying their power bills, and that borrowed money goes offshore to other places. It doesn't stay home. So in the same context, that when they say, well, we can't, the public shouldn't have ownership of electricity, that's sort of a lie really, because if you're subsidising private people, companies and private organisations and corporations, you can just as easily, obviously, it's far more intelligent and economically rational to subsidise the ownership of regional electricity by local people who live in the region, by them simply becoming shareholders in what I call a cooperative. The details of that I will give later, but then allows you to stratify the actual price to the consumer of electricity, and therefore you needn't have old people freezing to death in winter and boiling in summer like the activists and the politicians are creating now. What the politicians have done is really antisocial if you think about it. And it's sort of nihilistic because it causes damage. It causes damage. It's very simple. If you look at the idea of quantum theory, it says the more energy there is, the more order there is. The less energy, the more chaos there is. And you can take that by your kid's bedroom. If your kids' bedrooms are untidy, because they are not putting enough energy into tidying the bedroom up. It's very simple. Got a bit of energy, tidy their bedroom up, there's order. This doesn't mean total order in obedience to political correctness that these clones they're producing at university would want us all to bow to. Not to question anything, not to debate anything. That alone is entirely, utterly chaotic in the result of it, because it creates massive confusion, creates a totalitarian system, resolves nothing, and it's a sort of an order in a way, but it's an order that's flatlining the human race. So it's for sort of somehow they want it all to conform to something that is not very intelligent. For humans to obey and put a limit on knowledge is actually absolutely entirely irrational from an evolutionary point of view. It might advantage the elite who are gaining massive wealth out of this, but it totally disadvantages everyone else who are told you can't question, because when they have children in the future, what don't question anything, are just zombies basically. It becomes a science fiction story enacted through politics, through activists, comes into reality. And this is what they're doing. They're using the fear of climate change, and there's no fear of climate change. Anyone who's afraid of climate change should just think, hang on a minute, it's been changing forever, and even if it changes a bit more because of man's activity, which is bound to, that's natural cycle, people all over the world live in all different ways and have customs and cultures because of the environment and climate they've evolved through, or to come to live within. So the idea is this very simple-mindedness of people in America and the developed Western countries who basically must have very little to do or very little imagination to think, oh, there's a total conformity of way of being. Like the way they live, sitting looking at their little screens and tweeting all day, they think that is existence itself. That is the environment they live in. They don't realise other people out there busily going about their lives herding cattle or farming and mining and all the other things what then provide the economy and energy for these people to sit in their bedrooms, untidy bedrooms, tweeting on their screens, whinging about climate change, or other people who don't, climate deniers they call them. No one's denying climate change. What we're saying is, the more rational amongst us, is there's so far an irrational approach of subsidising private companies when the government could have just as easily subsidised regional economies or regional bodies of people who live in regions, so therefore they benefit by this cheap electricity. You're still bringing down emissions, and because everything's got to have a loan and borrowed money with it, there's also financial arrangement, because the loan, the deal is then the payments to the loan stay the same throughout. It doesn't matter if it's 10 years, 15 years, 20 years this takes to pay this equipment off. The payments stay the same, so the actual electricity price is coming down, therefore the economy is getting a boost. That's simple, rational, and it's it's limiting the amount of cost to look after that society in that area. It's creating its own internal fiscal system, which means that in a federal system it needs less assistance from the federal system, so therefore there's less money has to be borrowed. It's very, very, very simple. This has been denied, because this is the approach they should have had right from the very beginning, and then these politicians who all raved on about climate change, we've all got to fear it, and obviously had no idea about the science of energy and economics whatsoever. And if they did, and if anyone behind this they did, then there's a lot of questions they need to answer to the public themselves, which way they will at the elections. They will at the election. There's some time there has to be serious questions about the probity, due diligence, and actual common sense and logic, basic intelligence of those people representing the people. Because at the moment, a few years ago, they stopped doing that and started representing private companies. They subsidise the buggery, cause massive amount of debt, put people out of work, and they don't give a damn how many men are out of work now because of climate change. What's their environment like? The most important environment in the world is in your mind, in your heart, and in your house with the family. Meal on the table, somewhere comfortable to be, not too much pressure, everyone's got to go and get to work and stuff like that, that's a given. Everyone puts some effort in. Energy in, energy out, reward, that's it. That's the reward for living. And that's the most important thing, food on the table, somewhere comfortable to live, and not being an extortionist run the electricity system, which the governments are working for. The governments are subsidising extortionists, therefore the government, who says it can't subsidise or have the people run the electricity,